Keith. He is to me what Chuck Berry was to him, no question. Though I love Chuck, it took me a while longer to get to Chuck. I was born late enough in the game that I missed the first great wave of rock and roll, and influences, I think they're supposed to go backwards. Your inspirations are supposed to lead you to their inspirations, who in turn hopefully become your inspirations as well. And other than Hendrix, who was of course a much different kind of guitar player, complete virtuoso, complete innovator, revolutionary, and Jimmy transcended so many different kinds of music. But other than Hendrix, there's no other rhythm guitar player I can think of in all of rock and roll who made me want to just really figure out what was going on with rhythm guitar more. And it's pretty much Keith as well as Hendrix. And the Hendrix approach to rhythm guitar, that's like a series. It's not even a lesson. There's so many intricacies to the way that Jimmy approached rhythm guitar playing. Now with Keith, of course, it's a little more straight ahead, and but equally cool. And there is a lot of differing opinions and ideas on exactly when Keith went to different tunings and exactly what was going on in a lot of those great early Stones tracks. But we know that he started out in standard tuning, like the really early Stones stuff, Satisfaction and The Last Time and those great early singles. He's still playing in standard tuning. And he went through open E on the way to open G, of course, with the bottom string missing. So now, he's playing the 5-string open G. But before he got there, he was going through open E. And I'm thinking on Beggar's Banquet, I don't think there are any open G songs on Beggar's Banquet. Probably want to double check that before you quote me on that. But even on like Let It Bleed, and I want to talk a little bit about You Can't Always Get What You Want. Those were open E tunes where he was in alternate tunings. I think like Monkey Man, that's a standard tuning part, stuff like that. Gimme Shelter most certainly was in open E, and although you'll see him play it now these days out of the open G, on the 5-string, listen to the record, and put your hands to the guitar, and it's most certainly was recorded in open E, and what a track that was. So to get there, of course, we got the open strings tuned to E, B, E, G sharp, B, E. So it's just the pitches of an open E chord. E, B, E, G sharp, B, E. Now the tune is in key of C. He capos it up at the 8th fret. And this capo is pretty good, but I don't trust any capos, really. You want to double check your tuning when you put the capo on. So it's close enough for Keith. It's close enough for rock and roll. So that was also Al Cooper playing the French horn part on that session. A little bit of rock and roll trivia history. And open E is where you get all the shapes. They just lay right there under your fingers. First of all, just the actual pick itself, I find in general for rhythm guitar, certainly on acoustic guitar, but certainly when you're working on very specific things and you want to kind of conjure up the vibe of some of those tracks, you don't want to pick that's really too heavy, because then it kind of gets clunky. And you don't want something that's so thin that it doesn't have any definition to the sound. This is just a Fender Medium right now that I'm using for this. But once we are in the right tuning and we got the capo up at the 8th fret, start out with just the pull off from it's the 10th fret to the 8th. But let's just call it the 2nd fret, because let's call the 8th fret, now this is the new open string, is how I'll refer to that. So you're going from the 2nd, pulling off to the open, and then to the 4th string, and that's the 2nd, to the open 3rd string above it. And with these open tunings, you get a lot of those sort of beautiful voicings where open strings are ringing out as you go from one voicing to the next. So that's the first little bit. Okay, and you are strumming all 6 strings. Again, this was before Keith went to the 5-string thing. So, okay, that's the 4 chord. That's the beauty of open E, and also this happens a lot in open G, but that's a separate lesson. Just to get to the, you got the 1 chord right there, open. To get to the 4 chord, you want to put your 2nd finger in the 2nd fret, and that's on the 5th string. Then keep the open 4th string, because that's just going to ring, and your 1st finger in the 1st fret of the 3rd string. So if you were to isolate the fretted pitches, you would be, your fingers are at the 2nd fret and the 1st fret, and everything else is open. You just strum through. That's your 4 chord. That would be your F chord. Now, of course, it's inverted because of the tuning, and it's a good sound, but that's harmonically what's going on. So, okay, and there's that little, that riff that just goes on through the, so again, it's more hammering on. 5th string open, hammer it on to the 2nd, and go through the open 4th string, up to the fretted 3rd string in the 1st fret. Okay, and then you're back to this motion. It's like a suspended chord is what it is. It's got an added 2nd in there. And then this is, of course, Al Cooper's part, but I don't believe that it's doubled in the guitar part on the record, but I always play it because it's a great part. It's right there in the tuning. So that's the open 2nd string, the fretted 3rd string, the open 4th string, right? So to the 2nd fret on the 4th string, so in slow motion. Okay, so, and then you're back to your strumming pattern, and it repeats. And of course, as with so much of the Keith thing, so much of it is nothing that's really particularly complicated in the left hand. It's just a groove, and it's a feel thing that you're getting with your right. So play from the top, that intro again. And then Mick comes in. By the way, who is Mick Jagger? I cleaned that up a little bit in case my mom is watching my YouTube channel. Of course, you've seen the shirt that Keith was donning in the 1970s. So anyhow, go through, you play the, it's the same part underneath the vocal. In the great tradition of rock and roll, the whole verse only has 2 chords. Take a look at it this way. The Who got away with an entire song with 2 chords. There's only 2 chords in the whole thing of My Generation. At least this actually does go to some different chords once you get to the chorus. I'm not being disparaging, by the way. I love The Who as well. So the chorus, now you're in the chorus. As Mick's telling us, you can't always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, so that's where you go up to the whole, everything goes up to, it's a whole step up, so it would really be like a 2 major chord. Technically, it would be like a D major chord if you were like writing this out on paper. But we're not writing it out on paper. And what really goes on is you don't even hear a clearly defined guitar chord there. But what you do hear on the track is evidence to me that this is absolutely in open E and not an open G or anything else. You hear there's sort of like that one note. So it's the second fret on the sixth string. That's just fretted, and then you hear the little riff, Keith's little riff, as it goes into the 4 chord again. So what's happening with the chord structure is, but if you try sometimes, okay, there's your on the 2 chord up to the 4 chord. So it's 1, 2, 4 is what's going on harmonically. And if you try sometimes, you just might find you get what you need, right? So anyhow, and then Charlie comes in and life is beautiful. So that's a bit about what's going on with You Can't Always Get What You Want.